Hello there, I am Thomas Poynton from Thomas Talks, and today I am going to be interviewing Flavio, and I am interviewing here right now because he is quite an inspirational story. He's been to lots and lots of different countries, and he'd be quite interesting to talk. And some of the countries he's been has been quite different, should I say. Now, my first question, Flavio, is how many countries have you been?
Hi, Thomas. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to participate. So this question may sound extremely easy to everyone, like you just have to say a number, but actually it's debatable. So the easy answer is I've been to 150 different countries. But what exactly is a country? How you count them? What qualifies as a country might be debatable. Usually, the most common way of counting is using the United Nations system, in which there are 193 permanent members. So out of those 193 countries, I've been to 150. Then the other difficult point is, what does it mean you have visited a country? Because as it's very easy to imagine, I mean, staying 3 days in China doesn't mean much. It's such a huge country. Whereas maybe staying 3 days in a tiny island might be enough to have a first impression at least. But I would say I've been to 150 countries. I've spent at least 24 hours plus in a single one, in the shortest one. I've been 5 times to China, 5 times to India. I mean, I try to manage my time according to how much you can see, get, how spread is the culture, how important is the nation.
You've been to 155 UN recognized countries. Could you tell me, maybe if you can count, how many countries you've been to that are counted as countries by their own people?
Yeah, I've been to some country that is clearly identified as a nation. It even works as a nation. Like sometimes they have their own currency, they have a border, they have different rules. So you really feel like you are in a different country. They have an army sometimes. A few examples might be, I've been to West Sahara, I've been to Transnistria, I've been to Kurdistan, I've been to Somaliland. I mean, there are those areas you may have heard, maybe. They don't go on the newspapers every day, they don't show up. I mean, you have flags behind you and they have their own flags, but difficult to see it somewhere. Yeah, that's a good question. There are clearly a good number of those countries, and some of them are also very close to us. I mean, Transnistria is a good example, but you know, in the Caucasus, there are a few ones that are not so far away from England, let's say. And despite being so close, usually we don't hear much. Maybe Nagorno-Karabakh, you may have heard recently because there has been a war, a skirmish, but few people died. So it was on the newspapers. But otherwise, I mean, people don't realize that West Sahara exists, or maybe Kurdistan because of the American invasion, because it may be a little bit more recognized, but otherwise not.
Mm-hmm. And another question, do you recognize this flag here?
Wow. Not really. I mean, I would say, no, Belarus is probably wrong. It's might be something, no, I don't know. Just tell me. I can tell you the other one, not this one. So
this flag is a place called Transnistria.
Oh, okay. Okay, you see? My bad, because I've been there and I've mentioned it before. Yes. You see, not being used to look at the flag, When I was at school or living in Rome, there are so many flags everywhere because there are so many international institutions and stuff, but you never see Transnistria, so I even forgot by myself. Good question.
My next question, you've been to a lot of countries, and a lot of these countries have different languages. So, how many languages or how much of a language can you speak?
Not much. I'm very lazy from this perspective. I just try to learn how to say thank you when I'm in the place to be polite. Okay, I speak some English, as you can hear. I mean, English is clearly the, the main language pretty much everywhere. My mother tongue is Italian, so clearly I can speak in Italian, but that's not very useful when you travel. I studied French at school, but believe me, I'm not able to communicate. And I lived in Germany for a while. But if you ask me to speak in German, I'm in trouble again. I tried to learn some Spanish just to get by in South America because I would have stayed there. I was planning on staying there for 6 months straight. And there are areas in which people don't really speak much English. So with the idea that, I speak Italian, should be easy, but believe me, as I said, I'm quite lazy and maybe I'm not a good student, but it wasn't so easy. Anyway, you can survive. You can speak with your hands whenever is needed.
Now I've looked at your Facebook page, and you've been to quite a few wild countries, as we spoke of earlier. Now, what is the most extreme country or countries have you been?
That's also a good question. I usually answer Afghanistan because it's a very interesting country. It's clearly a country that every one of us perceives as dangerous. But it's a good question, and it's tough to give a real answer because, as we said briefly before, some countries are they clearly dangerous on average, but at the same time they are overrepresented in the news. Like if there is a bomb attack in Afghanistan, it always goes on the news, whereas other countries might be underrepresented, so they also very dangerous. They don't even made it to the first page, but doesn't mean they are not dangerous. So there are countries, I would say, especially like in Central Africa, where certain areas are really wild. There are big troubles, ethnic fights, whatever. We don't know. We just don't get reported, or not very often gets reported. Afghanistan, it's my toughest trip. I choose this one because I went there to run in the middle of the mountains to support Afghan women. So I might have even been seen as a target myself, not just because I'm a foreigner, but because I was trying to support a message that may not be appreciated in Afghanistan, let's say. But again, same as the number of countries in which you've been, it sounds an easy question, but at the same time it's not. And the perception of the danger, it's, we have a personal perception that doesn't get along with numbers. So sometimes people have a tiny disadventure and they really think the country was extremely dangerous, but it was not. It's like if you come to Rome and you have a bad experience, maybe someone is giving you a punch, this doesn't make Rome a dangerous country because it's such an rare occasion. So your personal experience does not represent the reality. So it's very difficult to have numbers. We don't have reliable statistics on those far-fetched places. So my answer is Afghanistan, but it's highly debatable.
I must say, I do love your perception of these different things, these different subjects which a lot of people see as not to be complicated, but the way you look at them, it really gets you to start thinking. I must say I really love that. My next question would be, like you've spoke about Afghanistan, and earlier when I asked how many countries you've been, you said quite like Somaliland and Transnistria, and well, there's a lot of people who'd be quite scared or quite woe about the fact that you visited these countries. So, what would your advice be?
Um, they may be right sometimes because they might be dangerous. I reckon less than what people think, because if you go asking suggestion to the right people and taking precautions, it's less dangerous that it sounds. But on the other side, it is dangerous. You clearly a target. There are areas in which they don't like foreigner. Anyway, as a foreigner, you always seen as the rich person that might be robbed or scammed or whatever. That's part of the thing. I might say to people, don't be afraid to the point that you do not travel. Just try to travel as much as you can. You don't have to go to Afghanistan, of course. You can begin exploring the city nearby yours. Just have the right mood and the right way of living in which you want to explore. Then, I mean, I don't jump from a plane with a parachute, and people might say it's perfectly fine, it's not dangerous. They probably even right, probably is not. But not everyone has to do exactly the same. But just try to be adventurous and look around you. I mean, don't stick with your own culture, your own religion, one language, one way of eating, one way of it's. I mean, the world is big.
Now, I've done some traveling myself, and I've traveled a lot in Europe, and recently I've been traveling a bit in the north, so Scandinavia. Would have you done any traveling in Scandinavia?
Yes, I've been in Scandinavia quite extensively, I would say. I mean, even reached uh, Greenland and Svalbard. I mean, it's not only Denmark or Norway, but I try to go really at the north of the north and so on. But that's perfect. I mean, why not to begin with the Scandinavians, especially the last year would be a perfect destination with not much COVID or a different approach to COVID and freedom and wonderful places. Why not?
Now I'm gonna ask for some more advice here. What would be your advice for younger people, not quite my age, but say like starting university, um, and they want to start traveling? Like, what destinations do you recommend, and what would your advice be for them?
When I was at university, so usually people don't have much money. I've done, but the world might have changed in between. I mean, taking a flight at the time was very expensive, but taking the train as a student was quite cheap. There were special programs for students. So I had the opportunity to travel throughout Europe for a very, very reasonable and affordable price. I don't know. Nowadays, maybe with cheap airlines and low costs, maybe you can even afford to fly somewhere. If you go to a hostel and you split the room with four friends and whatever, uh, you may experience a weekend somewhere with not much more than 100 euros or 100 pounds, whatever. So if you have a chance, instead of buying, I don't know, something else, I would suggest you go with this experience. But that's personal. I mean, it's just it depends on someone is lucky. Maybe parents have a lot of money and they make him a present, or maybe I don't know. In Italy, it works like this. Once you get a degree, usually you got a huge present from family, friends, relatives. You know, like. A watch or those things that I have nothing against, but maybe you can ask for a journey or an experience that may cost even less than a watch or whatever. I don't know how it works if you can work a little bit by yourself and save some money and try to travel. Otherwise, whenever you begin working and you can save a little bit of money, this may be used this way. I mean, it's really a wise way of spending your money. You enjoy it, you are enjoying it, and you learn something. But I'm sure you know you already. I mean, it's new generation. Everyone wants to travel, so I'm very happy about this.
Okay. So, so yet again, I just love your perspective of different views. Like, you don't just say your opinion, you say the other people's opinion, and you try and balance it both ways. My next question would be, what was your job before you started traveling?
Yeah, good question. Also, because traveling, as we said, might be expensive, especially in certain destinations. Because as you can imagine, going to Stockholm, there are many flights and many opportunities. Going to Afghanistan, the flights are expensive and you cannot go totally alone and so on. So I was playing, I was a professional gambler. That may sound very strange, but it was possible because I only focused on playing online poker. It's a game in which you do not compete against the house, but you compete against other players around the world. So if you are better than the others, you have chance of winning this money and make gambling a real working place. It's maybe now people might say, you say, oh, that's why he goes to Afghanistan. He's always someone who likes being in danger and making bets and taking odds and whatever. This might be true, or at least I don't know how true it is, but it has been a nice job. I enjoyed it. It was very, very popular in Italy. I guess in England, pretty much the same. It was spread maybe all around the world. And just to be clear with the people that are listening, it works only with poker. If you do something else, there is no way you can be a professional gambler. You may be a winner if you are incredibly lucky, because maybe you hit a jackpot and you win $1 million. But otherwise, whenever you play, you are going to lose a portion of your money. So in the long run, if you hit the button 1 million times, there is no way you are going to win some money. No way. It's statistically, mathematically impossible. Whereas in poker, as I said, the house, the poker room is collecting €1 from me, €1 from you, then we play and they don't care who's gonna win. So if you are much, much better than me in the long run by playing 1 million times, you are going to win all my money. That's it. So if you are a very good poker player, you can beat other players and make a living from it.
Okay. What would backgammon work as well?
Yes, true.
Because backgammon is a mixture of luck and skill, I believe.
Exactly, true. Backgammon has a portion of gambling in it, exactly like poker. But if you play a certain number of times, it doesn't matter, because you don't need to win every single game. You need to win at the end of the month. So in poker, I could play thousands and thousands of hands every month. I don't know how many backgammon games you can play in a month, but it's exactly the same principle. With backgammon, it was very difficult to be a professional player because it was a solved game. It's like chess. I mean, chess also might be perfection. We just bet money on a side and we play chess. The best player wins almost always. The point is, softwares and artificial intelligence and other things may help you cheating, so it wasn't really working. With poker, it was perfect because there was no problem. I mean, some software may have helped you, but that doesn't mean you really win. It was just a little help.
So, and I know you were a gambler and you enjoyed it. What made you stop gambling and start traveling?
Good question. As I said, playing poker until 6-7 years ago, it was extremely popular. Afterwards, in Italy, they legalized pretty much everything in gambling, not only poker. So the vast majority of people that were losing money in poker, they began playing something else, like sports bets, roulette, casinos, whatever. So my customers, if you want to call them like this, I mean, my opponents, the people from which I should have won the money, they were just playing something else. So winning money in poker became really difficult. Only the best players remains in the field. So the pool was tough, and not many people were playing anymore. So my job has seen my revenues shrinking incredibly. So I just said, okay, you know what? I saved some money, so I just travel for a year. I didn't say I travel forever, but also because I cannot afford, but I said, I want to travel for a year continuously. It was my dream since I was a teenager, but I couldn't afford. This was the time because I wasn't losing an occasion, opportunities. My job was not going well anyway. So that's why I quit temporarily, but then it became steadily. Now I haven't played anymore. I keep traveling, and I hope in the future I may transform again a passion in a job. I've done it with poker. I hope I will do it with traveling, pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm getting on to almost the end. I have, well, not a picture. I have a statue on my desk, and this statue is pretty special. His name is Ho Chi Minh, and he is my hero because what he did is he got younger people. I mean, not younger people. He got normal, ordinary peasants, and he said, if you work together, you can achieve many great things. And he's also Vietnamese, and I'm half Vietnamese, so I feel a heritage connection to him. So, who is your hero?
Very good question. Okay, that's interesting. I've seen Ho Chi Minh. I mean, his body. You know, when I've been in Vietnam, it's. I remember he was changing name very often, but he had a very interesting life, traveling throughout Europe, by the way, and making many experiences and learning French and being back. You should have let me guess, so I could recover from missing the Transnistria flag, because maybe I would have guessed properly the statue. About my hero, to remain in the field in which I like to live right now, I would say that we have great explorers that we've been taught at school. I mean, the one I admire because it was Italian, and it's the first I heard was Marco Polo. You may have heard about him. He was a very famous explorer from Venice because Italy didn't really exist at the time. And he reached China. He worked for a Kublai Khan, probably. He became a maybe friend with him. We don't know how historically sound are all those things. I mean, but there is a book that he wrote at the time by, telling someone has been written by someone else. But in this book, there is something historically incredibly interesting, but mixed with fantasies and also things that cannot be historically certain. Anyway, that's just kind of my hero. Just imagine, I said before, it's so much, I don't know exactly what to recommend to a teenager, because when I was his age, I was using the train. And nowadays, flights are very, very cheap inside Europe. At least they were until a year ago before COVID. In 20 years in Europe, so much has changed. So imagine traveling like 800 years ago, what should have been. I mean, reaching countries nowadays, it's kind of easy. If you have money and time, you can go almost everywhere. At the time, just reaching a single country so far away would have been an incredible achievement.
Okay, and on that subject of Marco Polo, fun fact, back in year 3, so I was 8, I think. We had this day where you had to dress up as your favorite explorer, and I chose Marco Polo.
Nice.
Now, before I end the interview, I believe before the interview started, you said something about you had a question. So what was your question?
Oh, my question is not really that I have a question. I mean, I'm very happy to be here because you're very, very young. So, I mean, making question and talking about countries that are so far away, it's very, very interesting. But I discovered you have Vietnamese, so you have this advantage of being able to look on the other side and feeling it not so far away. It belongs to you anyway. So where would you like to go? Which is your favorite country? You have a wish, except for Vietnam?
Me, the country I want to go to the most, well, not country, but area or countries, is this this like the Arabic side, so Syria, Iraq, Iran, Egypt, that area.
Okay, good
And I,
choice.
and I like to study more on the Israel issue going on there, and it'd be quite interesting to visit.
Okay, good choice, good choice. Full of topics and very, very instructive. You will learn a lot. That's good.
Yes. Well, before I say goodbye, how do you say goodbye in Italian?
Okay, there is a very friendly way that probably everyone knows. That's ciao. If you need to be more formal, there are many others, but ciao probably is fine, right?
So, ciao.
Okay, ciao. Thank you. Have a nice day.